So before I get started, this is what you're looking at here. This is a base map of the land. Maps the wind sector, predominant winds, sun sector. I'll get into more of this. It's a concept map of some principles. We have the summary of the project at a glance, and the holistic goal that I helped form for the site, for the people. And this is a 3D model that brings to life the main activity area and proposed design. So, oh yeah, here it is. I thought I was going to have to present without notes. I swear that wasn't a setup. So beginning in March, I set out to develop a permaculture design plan for Prairie Farms, 140-acre rural site, 5 miles north of here. The overarching mission of Prairie Farms is to build a resilient community that provides opportunities for people to learn how to live in harmony with each other and the earth. It has a unique story, and for the past 5 years, sustainable living units have been living there, co-creating an example of sustainable living with the landlord, so they have the opportunity to apply what they're learning on a real site and kind of work out their rent-trade agreement in that way. So it's pretty unique. It's a beautiful piece of property. So I'm one of those students, and I'll be leaving this document behind to help guide the evolution of the farm. The potential depth and scope of a permaculture design is endless. It really is. This project was not intended to provide detailed instructions of a land management strategy. It's to outline an overall framework for the big picture and discuss some potential ways the vision, mission, and goals can be fulfilled. So now, we've got 80 pages here, and I'm going to just start on page 1, and we'll just read through it real quick.
Humor.
What, I swear it would be interesting. So what in the unified fields could I possibly say about the results of doing this? We'll start with the universal aspect. This of the project. This concept map is maps relationships between permaculture principles in yellow and SCI principles in blue. When you look at the two principles, they're really, really synchronized. The symmetry of the image is reflective of the symmetry of the principles. And this shape is kind of formed. So you have principles such as, in permaculture, we want to integrate rather than segregate in our design plan. And that's because, well, we know in SCI the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Why it makes sense to integrate rather than segregate. For example, how I applied this into the design, you can look at the main activity area and these proposed design features. We mapped out zones of use according to specific functions and relative location of where it would be most convenient to have X, Y, and Z. And so you put your workshop, your tool shop and workshop space where everyone ends up going at the end of the day so that the tools don't get left in the garden. And so in that way, we used this integrative design for placing different features. I tried to apply all these principles in one project. Not just take one and use it in what I'm doing, but apply them all in one project. So the permaculture design process, which is what I did a permaculture design, and this goes into detail about the steps that you go through: vision, mission, goals, observation, analysis, assessment, successional plan for implementation and maintenance over time. That whole strategy is a way to apply these principles in an organized and grounded way that's specific to the actual site, Prairie Farms. Permaculture design, Bill Mollison, the founder. The problem is the solution. In SCI, we know that the field of all possibilities is the source of all solutions, so it makes sense that you would find the solution in the problem. For example, this site put together this tools and documents binder, have there a lot of creative freedom, sustainable living students learning lots of new things, and they can just do all kinds of stuff. People running around creating new things all the time. The problem is that you sort of have this sustainability junkyard piling up where not everything's done with craftsmanship or foresight or a sense of how it all fits into the farm organism. So the project proposal form is actually, this is for them, that I'm leaving for them. It requires them to do a basic functional analysis. What are the products and what are the needs, what they're going to create, and then how does it fit into the farm organism? What are the materials, what's the budget, so that things are done intentionally and with a sense of the whole in mind. So there you have the problem, people doing lots of things. That's our solution. They're going to do lots of things. Let's direct it, and then even more gets done. It gets done even better.
Could you explain what you meant, or maybe another example of what the founder of that particular branch of knowledge said when he said the problem is the solution? Could you? What did he mean by that exactly?
To him, the only limitation is the creativity of the designer. So when you look at the problem, we just see how solutions are made to mitigate a problem and then it pops up somewhere else. Because, if I can think of an example, chickens, they produce a lot of manure. Chicken coops get really dirty. Well, that's a waste stream that you have to deal with. It's a management problem. It's a pollution problem. So how is that problem the solution? Well, that manure is really high nitrogen, which makes excellent feedstock for compost. So if you're farming and you have chickens, you can use their manure when you clean it out, put it into a compost system, and then it's a resource. What this permaculture design process does is bring in a strategic, holistic management tool. So permaculture design is all about relationships and mapping relationships. This maps the relationship of different elements to the land. There's 80 years of observation, rigorous observation, mapping the site, what's already here, before we decide what we need. Let's know what we have, and let's know who we are, and let's know what we want. And that's what the holistic goal is for. And so they can take these high-level management tools. This is used all around the world for settings, Forest Service. Alan Savory is the person who developed this. He's got a great TED Talk about it. And so this was designed to maximize functional interconnections because everything is connected. So our design, in permaculture, we design to maximize that to our best use. And then from there, you really do get harmony and diversity. So one thing I couldn't show just because there wasn't enough space were the zones of use, and that's an important land management map that I made that kind of designates certain areas with certain functions. And so we have the whole land mapped in zones, and then zone 1 is the highest activity area. So that's why the greenhouse is there. It needs a lot of maintenance. Gardens there. The wood tool shed is there by the access road. There's houses. There's the fire pits over there. Yeah.
So could you tie that in a little bit more to the energy flows map? So are you talking about with the energy flows map that those are the areas of highest activity?
The energy flows map is a map that's made in the early stages to understand what's on your site. So you know what your wind resources are, what your patterns are like. For maybe you plant your tree rows in your tree buffer in relation to the wind sector. And there's the water pattern. So one of the big things in Iowa is the drought. So we were able to identify the priority of the land based on our map of the water flows. So we identified certain areas that are best to dam and different land management strategies that increase the water resource.
So you're trying to harness as much energy as possible?
Yeah.
And maximize resources?
Yes. Yeah. Recognize all map the resources already present so that we can obtain a yield with minimum inputs. Like that. And so then placing the greenhouse and placing these different design features at the end, after you've done all the mapping observation, what plants, what wildlife is there, what are the social dynamics, what's the money, what are your other community resources. So it's a really thorough and like exhaustive mapping process of all relationships, so that your design features are intentional and appropriate for what you already have. This process and design, learning about design and consciousness, how important the consciousness of the designer is in the design itself. That's like my priority is like here. And then things have a way of presenting themselves. I think that all the plans that I've conjured up and all the different opportunities and possibilities of Masters in Environmental Education, integrating this into the environmental science curriculum, or interning at different places to learn hands-on strategies for creating an example like this. I was going to stay here, actually, and implement this. That was the plan. But life had a different plan for me, and so I'm just going home to heal and kind of trust that inspiration to carry me on.